As the Dendro Archon, Nahida has lots of roles that she offers as a unit. She can apply Dendro off-field, deal some DPS, as well as fit into so many team compositions. In today's video, we're going to be talking about why Nahida is worth considering to pull for, whether you have the Primo Gems or not. Alright, let's dive into the video. Yo! What's going on, y'all? We have the Dendro Archon herself, making very nice symbols. As you can see, she's just chilling. We all chilling, we vibing. But before we get started with the video, make sure you guys check out my Nahida Post review video that's already uploaded onto my channel. It's where I give my own personal thoughts on her talents, her kit, and as well as whether she is worth pulling for or not. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well as like this video for more of these type of guide content. Alright, now, without further ado, let's get started with the video. So we got Nahida's kit. There's many ways to build her, but this is more of a standardized build that I would go for this certain type of team that I use for Nahida. So we'll go over two different kinds of builds, but for now we'll just go with the bloom support kind of build. So here we go. We got Nahida. You probably may have noticed the EM is drastically high, and I'll explain why in this video later on. But as you can see, everything else is pretty standard, and you may be looking at my crit ratio and be like, bruh, this crit rate is pretty low. Like, what the hell, man? It's terrible. Again, it'll all make sense once I explain in this video on why I'm focusing on a particular stat. So, for weapons, I'm running a magic guide, which I'll explain why I'm using a 3-star weapon. Artifacts, I'm using 4-piece Deepwood. And talents, let's get over to it. So, we got the talents right here. Normal attacks doesn't really do much. It's just basically Dendro application on field because she is a catalyst user. There's not much reason to upgrade this unless you're trying to do spread DPS. Even though you're doing spread DPS, you don't really need to level up this high because most of her damage multipliers here are quite low compared to her other talent multipliers. So let's move on to what's actually more important, is her skill. Her elemental skill is where her Dendro application comes from. So basically what it does is she has two uses of using her elemental skill. First one is when you tap, it basically swipes Dendro, and whoever is within her range will get affected by it. And then when you hold her elemental skill, you create this camera-like effect where you're able to scan and mark nearby opponents within its range, reapplying Dendro as well as dealing AoE Dendro damage. So this is a really cool mechanic though, and you can pretty much do this unlimited amount of times. Well, actually that's not true. You can do this up to 8 opponents, and basically as long as you do Dendro reactions, your opponents will be constantly applied with Dendro. So this is really, really great for Dendro application as well as Nahida's off-field DPS. So again, there's two ways to use her skill. It's either to tap or hold. Most of the times people would use the hold because at least you can aim where her skill is, especially at far range too. It has a lot of range. Seed of Skanda, the opponents who have been marked by the Seeds of Skanda will be linked to one another to a certain distance. After you trigger elemental reactions on opponents who are affected by the Seeds of Skanda, or when they take damage from the Dendro cores, including Burgeon or Hyperbloom damage, Nahida will unleash Tri-Karma Purification on the opponents and all connected opponents, dealing Dendro damage based on her attack and elemental mastery. You can trigger at most one Tri-Karma Purification within a short period of time. So, in other words, as long as you're making an elemental reaction, you'll be able to trigger Nahida's Tri-Karma, which will then do connected Dendro damage to your opponents, and also reapplies Dendro. And here is the damage multipliers. As you can see, there's actually an additional skill damage. You have the press damage versus the hold damage. Doesn't really matter. What matters here is the Tri-Karma Purification damage, which all does scale with her attack and elemental mastery. As you can see here, this is one of the reasons why you want to stack up as much elemental mastery as possible. And there's a trigger interval. It's every 2.5 seconds, so it's pretty solid. And the duration is super long. So this is one of the best reasons why I consider Nahida is an insane character, is because of how long her Seed of Skanda duration lasts. It also does remind me of, you know, the other Archon, Raiden Shogun, with her elemental skill also being very similar for her Electro off-field application. And there's also a 1 second difference with the press cooldown or the hold cooldown, so that makes her rotation and reapplying her skill quite flexible. And for elemental burst, it's quite simple. Basically, all these buffs will apply based on your party member's elemental type as long as it's listed here. And what's even cool is if you have more than one, so up to 2 party members with the same elemental type, it'll basically stack up the buff. So as you can see here, when you have Pyro, you basically gain Pyro damage bonus. If you have up to 2 characters, your Pyro damage characters will get up to 40% Pyro damage. Or if you have Electro, one character will be 0.45 seconds for the trigger interval decrease. And then when you have double Electro, it'll be 0.67 decrease for the trigger interval, which is insane. Actually, this is pretty good. Basically, it cuts down to 1.443-ish So pretty much you're going to be constantly triggering her elemental skill. And for the Hydra duration is extended. Basically, that means that anytime you have like one Hydra character, you're going to burst, it's going to extend up to 6 seconds. And when you have double, it's going to be up to 9 seconds. This is probably the least, but, you know, still quite nice. And as you can see already, this is pretty ridiculous. By the way, what kind of burst has a longer duration than a cooldown? I've never seen that before. Unless it's like with certain conditions, right? But for just the base kit itself, that's kind of ridiculous. And energy cost is 50. That's super easy to get. And it has a massive AoE as well. So do not worry about like losing out on the effect, because most of the times, 90% of the times, you're going to be within inside the elemental burst. So you'll be fine. Also, for those who has no idea and was wondering, the burst does not apply Dendro. But then again, that's not a big deal because her elemental skill already covers that. But very straightforward. Her elemental burst buffs based on your party members' types. So now going on to her passives. So the first passive here is Illusionary Heart. Basically, her elemental burst will gain the following effects. The elemental mastery of the active character within the field will be increased by 25% of the elemental mastery of the party members within the highest elemental mastery. You can gain up to a maximum of 250 elemental mastery in this manner. So this is a good reason on why you want to stack up elemental mastery on Nahida, because Nahida as a character, she's going to likely, you know, be your highest elemental mastery character on your team party. But if not, then there's something higher than that's fine too. Like let's say Kazu or Sucrose, and that also works too. But the whole idea is that you want to basically stack up elemental mastery so you can gain more elemental mastery as soon as your Nahida's burst summons on the field. So this is very nice. This creates more flexible rotation as well as, you know, more team buffs, which is always very great, right, as a support. And then for the second passive, this is why I've mentioned about stacking up elemental mastery. So as you can see, each point of Nahida's elemental mastery beyond 200 will grant 0.1% bonus damage and 0.03% crit rate to Tricon Purification for all schemes. No, that's the elemental skill. And a maximum can be up to 80% bonus damage and 24% crit rate can be granted. So basically what this means is up to what? I think 1,000 elemental mastery, right? You get up to 80% bonus damage and 24% crit rate. So that means at that point you wouldn't want to exceed 1,000 elemental mastery, but reaching around, in my personal opinion, maybe like 800 to 1,000, if you can possibly do that with Nahida, is the good comfort zone for Nahida to take advantage of this passive here. So basically personal DPS increase and also, you know, overall team party buffs from this passive. So already by itself, Nahida sounds insane, right? And it kind of gets better. And with this passive here, which is probably one of my favorite passives in the game, as well as I would argue one of the best selling points about Nahida in the game, is that she basically uses her elemental skill and she can scan nearby harvestable items and collect it automatically inside of your inventory. This just saves so much time, which makes her exploration efficient as well as just convenience overall, which does save you so much time, especially if you're trying to farm for your new character that you're planning to build for. And overall, this just makes her an S tier exploration character. Also, she has this really cool thing where whenever she uses her elemental skill on certain NPCs, you can basically read their minds like the actual game. So this is a really cool thing. It's not really particularly useful, but it's very cool. It makes her unique. Alright, for Constellations. Constellations, I'm not really, again, I don't vouch for Constellations most of the times because, you know, most of the times Constellations in this game aren't necessary at all. But then again, we'll talk about Nahida's Constellations real quick for those who are interested. So, C1. Basically, when the Shrine of Maya, the Elemental Burst, unleash the elemental types of the party members are being tabulated, the count will add to 1 of the number of Pyro, Electro, and Hydra characters respectively. So this means you basically already get the additional buff, even though if you have 1 elemental type on your team party member. So even though you have 1 Pyro character, you get basically double the Pyro buff as long as you have it on there. Very nice. Quality of life stuff. C2, basically, this is the big one. Whenever your opponents are affected by this skill, as long as you do Burning, Blooming, Hyper Bloom, Burgeon reaction damage, they can score crit hits. And crit rate and crit damage are fixed at 20% and 100% respectively. And within 8 seconds of being affected by Quicken, Activate, and Spread, defense is decreased by 30%. So basically, as long as you do Burning, Bloom, Hyper Bloom, Burgeon reaction, you'll basically get crit rate and crit damage increased by 20% and 100%. And then whenever you do Aggravate, Quicken, Spread, the defense overall is decreased by 30%. As you can see, this is a massive DPS increase. And for most players, this is probably very familiar to Raiden's C2, where she basically decreases defense whenever you use her Elemental Burst. It's a very similar idea, except Nahida, you know, has a lot more effects. Again, it's kind of overkill if I'm being honest, but it's, you know, if you want to see the big numbers from Nahida herself, or, you know, with your Bloom reactions, then by all means, this is the constellation I would recommend to go up to. For C3, 3 levels up to her skill, not that big of a deal. C4, up to 1, 2, and 3, and 4 or more nearby all opponents are effective. all schemes to know seeds of Skanda. Nahida's elemental mastery will be increased up to 100, 120, 140, and 160. So basically, if you get, let's just say, 4 opponents affected by the, your elemental skill, then you get up to 160. These are individually calculated. So if you get up to 4, it doesn't add up. It only just goes by up to 160, which is still insane. You get more elemental mastery, so that's always very good. Very nice. C5 is 3 levels up to her burst. That's okay. C6, when Nahida hits an opponent affected by all schemes to know seeds of Skanda with normal or charge attacks after unleashing Illusionary Heart, she will use Trikarma Purification Karmic Oblivion on this opponent and all connected opponents, dealing Dendro damage based on 200% of Nahida's attack and 400% of elemental mastery. Damage dealt by Trikarma Purification Karmic Oblivion is considered elemental skill damage and can be triggered once every 0.2 seconds. This effect can last up to 10 seconds and can be removed after Nahida has unleashed 6 instances of Trikarma Purification. Basically, again, another massive personal DPS increase. If you again want to see Nahida's massive nuke on, her elemental skill, then this C6 is there for that. Again, is it necessary though? No, it is not. But again, for those who already has Nahida and are interested in pulling for Constellations, in my personal opinion, I think C2 is the max stopping point for budget-wise, because already this is going to be a massive DPS increase, and then everything else is more of like, a little quality of life stuff like C1, C4, and the C3 as well. So overall, Constellations is very good, but not needed because Nahida's base kit is already insanely powerful. Now for her gear, as you can see, we got artifacts. So she actually has she's quite flexible in terms of building, but in my personal recommendation, I will go for 4-piece Deepwood, and we'll go into what stats you want after we talk about the artifact sets. So my personal recommendation, 4-piece Deepwood, because this is easy to use on Nahida, and also it's very good. And basically you just decrease Dendro resistance. She's quite always going to be able to decrease it. It's just going to be super easy for a character that has a really good Dendro application like Nahida. There's other sets that you could use as well. You could use 4-piece Gilded. I would only recommend this set if you already have a Dendro support that has 4-piece Deepwood. This applies for every single unit that's going to be carrying this. As long as you have 4-piece Deepwood, then you can use 4-piece Gilded. But yeah, this is basically the same case for Nahida. If you already have a Dendro support carrying Deepwood, then you can carry 4-piece Gilded for Nahida. But other than that, I can't really think of anything else better for Nahida in terms of the 4-piece set. But for the 2-piece set, you can do 2-piece of Deepwood. If you don't have the stats for it, you can do 2-piece Deepwood and then 2-piece of anything else, maybe EM, right? So Wander, or 2-piece of Gilded again, that works as well. 2-piece attack for personal DPS increase. But in my personal opinion, 4-piece Deepwood is still the go-to, because 4-piece Deepwood's passive effect is very good. Unless you already have somebody with 4-piece Deepwood on your team, then you can do 4-piece Gilded. So that's my personal recommendation for artifact sets. Now for stats, you want EM for your substats, obviously, right? EM and everything else attack, crit is all sub-excessive if you want. You can have it in there as well. For the main stats for the Sands is Elemental Mastery no matter what. It's always going to be Elemental Mastery, so basically go for Elemental Mastery. For the Goblet and the Circlet is the tricky part. So a lot of people would still be confused. In my personal opinion, from testing it out, go for triple Elemental Mastery if you're going to use her for blooming reaction. So that includes Bloom, Burgeon, Hybrid Bloom, etc. This will just basically increases her own personal elemental mastery and buffs more overall elemental mastery to your teammates, because those reactions scale higher with elemental mastery. But if you're gonna make her more of a off-field DPS, then you can switch around whatever you have that's better in terms of substats. So if you have a Dendro Goblet with better substats, you could do that instead. Or if you have a crit circlet with better, substats, right? Obviously crit rate with crit damage, or the other way around, then you can also do that. You can mix it up a bit, and Nahida will still function insanely well anyway. So I have on my other accounts a Dendro Goblet and crit circlet sometimes. So you can build the standard elemental mastery, Dendro, and crit. Or you can even do elemental mastery, and crit. It doesn't matter. You just mix it up as long as the subsets are good enough. And if you're gonna go for a DPS build, I would roughly say try to get up to 400 to 600 elemental mastery, roughly, if you can. Possibly that'll be a very good spot for Nahida. Now for weapons, I mean, look, it's pretty straightforward. I think you may all be able to guess, but give her anything that has elemental mastery on there. Elemental mastery is, again, the stat that you want on Nahida the most. Even this book, 3-star weapon, is still pretty good on her. Everyone should have this book. It's a free-to-play Catalyst book that's available from Gacha. You'll get this anywhere, and R5 it is pretty easy as well. So yeah, this is the go-to if you are a complete free-to-play. However, there's a lot more options too that you could use. A popular one is Sacrificial Fragments. It carries a lot of EM from the substat, and you know, there's a lot of other options as well. A popular one for DPS is Wit Sith, because of the passive from Wit Sith will do a lot more DPS for Nahida. And there's a lot more options, but in my personal opinion, as long as you have EM for the substats for your catalyst, doesn't matter what it is, and as long as it's like pretty decently high as well, then Nahida will do a decent amount of damage. So that is Nahida, and that's it. It's pretty straightforward. Just use any book that has Elemental Mastery on there. Alright, so let's get on to Nahida's team comps. So another big strength of Nahida is she can fit into literally every single Dendro team comp. Literally every single Dendro team comp. So she is arguably still the best Dendro support as of right now. And like what, you know, one of her biggest strengths from her kit is she has good Dendro application, also good DPS, and buffs. So she can fit into so many team comps that you really need. So for example, this is my Nilou team. You've already seen it in the previous video on Nilou. And if you're gonna go for, let's just say for example, a Hyper Bloom team, right? Let's just say I want Nahida on there, right? And let's just say right into my Hyper Bloom unit. Then we can go like, you know, Xing Shou, whatever, right? This is a decent team. Then you can go with this team for the Hyper Bloom team, right? You can also go for Bergen, right? Let's just say I want Toma as my Bergen unit. And then let's just say I'm gonna need more Hydra application, so we're gonna go with Kokomi. Then this would be also a very solid team that you can use for Bergen as well. And it's just endless. Nahida creates so many kinds of team compositions, if you guys are getting the idea. And there's also Aggravate as well. You can do, you know, whatever you want, Flex, right? Or you can do Healer, it doesn't matter. Nahida is just there for your Dendro support, is the whole idea. And what's also cool is, I actually was wrong about this, but about how Nahida would just be extremely niche with Dendro reactions, which, don't get me wrong, she still kind of is, but she can actually take advantage because of how certain Dendro reaction mechanics work. So for example, you can actually fit her with one of my favorite teams, which is the Ganyu Melt. So if basically how this team works is you create Dendro plus Pyro, which creates the burning reaction, and then that'll just basically have good Pyro application off field, and then you can just have Ganyu just keep on charge attacking, and then once you need the Pyro application again, just reapply, and it's simple as that. So that's the whole idea with this. And look, not only is Nahida great with just, you know, Dendro focused reaction teams, she can also work pretty well as long as she's able to utilize Dendro reactions, and that is her whole point of her design. So overall, team compositions, it's endless. As long as you have Nahida on your team, and then you can fit her on any other Dendro team, she's gonna function perfectly fine. Let me showcase my favorite team compositions, and we should be good to go. There's many teams you can try out. As you can see, we got the showcase first off. The Aggravate Kaching team. Fly. There you go. You see? Quite nice. And that is basically the whole idea with the Aggravate Kaching team. Here we go. Alright, apply. Once again. There we go. Alright, lastly, I'm going to show you one of my favorite teams to use. This is the Ganyu Cocoa Melt Meat team. So all you gotta do is just apply. Right? Apply Dendro first. And then we're gonna go up to Pyro. Then they're all burning reactions, as you can see. So if you just aim, boom. It's that easy. So overall, Nahida, as you can already tell from the showcases, she just does her job so well done. She's a buffer. She also has good Dendro application, good DPS. She just does so many great things. And she's also insane for exploration. So she already gives you so much at her base kit. She is an insanely valued unit that is definitely worth pulling for, which is something that I would say is a go-to. And I would say also she's a top 3, top 5 must summon unit as well, I would say. So if you want basically to make your Dendro teams a lot better, Nahida is going to be that character for you. So if that's all you guys are expecting for, then that is all I got. So if you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel as well as like this video for more of this type of content. And I wish you guys all good luck for those who are deciding to pull for Nahida or Nilu, or maybe even both. That is all I got. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, until next time, stay epic and peace out.